تفضل. بسم الله. You ready?
I have one Ramadan fast to make up, and I was really hoping to finish it today. I wasn't able to wake up in time. I'm wondering if I can fast tomorrow. I don't usually fast on Friday.
طيب بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Before we get started with the questions, the book we're going to introduce you to tonight is volume 1 of Kitab al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. Kitab al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. This being the first volume, it has a section which is an introduction, which is called Taqdimatul Jarh wa Ta'dil. Taqdimatul Jarh wa Ta'dil. This book is written by Abu Muhammad Abdurrahman ibn Abi Hatim of the 4th century, a well-known book, and it's of several volumes discussing the narrators of Hadith, the Ruwat and the Naqala, the men and the women from the Sahaba on down or on up who narrated narrations. The strong narrators, the weak narrators, the truthful narrators, narrators who are liars, the accurate narrators, and the sloppy and inaccurate narrators, not necessarily always being their fault. Everyone isn't as smart or sharp or can retain as much as others. Al-Muhim, the Ruwat. It is not a book that is specific to the thiqat, and this is a fa'idah, only we're talking to hadith disciples now, real tulab of hadith, is that the kutub al-jarh wa ta'dil or kutub al-rijal ala thalathat aqsam. منها ما أفردت لرواة الثقات ومنها الضعفاء والمتروكين ومنها ما قد يعني ألف من أجل الجمع بين هذا وذا. هذا الصنف وهذا الصنف، يعني كتب جمعت بين رواة الثقات ورواة الضعفاء والمتروكين. ومن تلكم الكتب هذا كتاب. This isn't a book that deals with the thiqat, the trustworthy narrators, nor is it a book that is specific for the weak narrators, but it's a book that mentions, Okay. And it's a long history behind this book, a legacy behind this book, controversy behind this book with regards to the author's father and Abu Zur'a al-Razi with Imam al-Bukhari. That's a well-known story in the time of Imam al-Bukhari, etc. There were several different issues they had among themselves pertaining to hadith, concepts or accusations of plagiarism, all types of stuff, aqidah, and the list goes on. Okay, Al-Muhim, the son, he compiled this book in which he has asked his father, or his father was asked, or Abu Zur'a was asked, or others such as Imam Ahmed were asked about narrators and narrations, and they gave their views about those narrations. Kitab al-Jarh wa Ta'dil. This is an extremely important work in the hadith culture for researchers, bahithin, people who are studying and discussing and making takhrij and making the kalam ala rijal wa ruwat, etc. So in this first volume, as I said, there's a supplement called Taqdimatul Jarh wa Ta'dil, an introduction. Before the author Ibn Abi Hatim goes into the narrators and their types and their classes, he gives an introduction. And he mentions many things in that introduction. And from the things that he mentions in this introduction, like most of the ulama who wrote books like this, they gave a muqaddimah. Ibn Adi, Al-Uqayli, alright? They give an introduction, they talk about some of the principles of ilm al-hadith and ilm al-rijal, its importance, its necessity, its obligation, preservation of Islam, of the sunnah, etc. And from the things that they mention is that they praise and they laud the imams of hadith. And they talk about their virtues, and they talk about their merits. The fada'il, and the mahasin of these ai''mmah. This is before they even start talking about narrators, praising or disparaging narrators. When I was in Medina, one of my teachers had explained to us in the first year of the college is that this wasn't by accident. There was a reason why they put this introduction in most of their books first. And that was meant to prepare the reader, let alone the one who becomes an expert, the one who practices this science, that he must start off with this. And that is the characteristics, the qualities, and the etiquette of these imams. Before he talks about studying hadith, before he talks about ilm al-rijal, narrators who are thiqat, who are du'afa, weak, kadhab, sahih, da'if, that you have to be upon what they're upon before you even put your foot into the pond, let alone become an Olympic swimmer, and you just go into the water, is that you have to take an introduction. And that introduction was talking about those imams and what they were and how they lived. So from the most distinguishing things that we find in this introduction, and in most of the introductions that talk about the Imam, the imams, and what they were upon, first and foremost is religious devotion. Religious devotion, piety, and righteousness. Is that these imams, it was consensus that they were righteous. They were God-fearing, as they say. They weren't sinners and evildoers and wicked people, but they were true, honest, upfront people. And this has nothing to do with the hadith and ilm, but just as Muslims, they were good Muslims. And this is something that we explained a long time ago, that a student of knowledge is supposed to be elite. And the elite only become elite based off of locking down the fundamentals. And that's why we say it was nothing special except for this, that they had solidified the foundations. Then they built upon those foundations. No cracks or flaws in the fundaments of the religion. So the etiquette of talib al-ilm, a lecture of the etiquette of talib al-ilm, how were the Salaf when they saw ilm, the Salaf in Ramadan, it was ikhlas, it was taqwa, it was salat and jama'ah, it was honesty, it was birrul walidain, visiting the yatim, etc. That's it. They perfected it. هذا هو. The deen, the kitab, and the sunnah is what they were upon. Period. Nuqta. And that's what made them so special in a time and a place in which others chose other things. Okay? Let alone the heightened and advanced spirituality and piety that they had. Another very important feature that we find in this introduction, in the introduction to these books, is devotion to knowledge. Dedication to ilm and to ilm al-hadith. And that's something that we lack as well. One day I want to be a student of knowledge. The next day I want to make money in the dunya. One day I want to be a student of knowledge. And the next day I want to hang out with this person. And I want to be cool and hip and do this and do that. Or I just don't feel like studying anymore. Or I want to drop out of school. Or it's difficult. Or someone talked about me. Or my wife wants a divorce. Or my grandfather is sick. Or my grandmother is sick. And so on and so forth. You can't let anything come between you and ilm if you want to reach some of what these imams were given. Everyone understand this? So we find about Malik and Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Sufyan al-Thawri and Shu'bah and Abdurrahman ibn Mahdi and etc. is that number one, they were religiously devoted. Number two, they were devoted to knowledge and they were devoted to ilm al-hadith. Point number three, we find about these imams is that they were blessed with a great deal of brilliance. They were smart. And they put their smarts to use, meaning they had worked hard. They were people of ijtihad. They were diligent and they were accurate. So some of us aren't religious, or we put on the front in the show, unfortunately. Or some of us, we really don't have, all around piety. We only have piety when it's convenient. Or some of us, we are pious and religious, but we're not devoted to knowledge. And some of us who are religious and pious, devoted to knowledge, we are inaccurate. When we memorize, when we narrate, when we talk, and when we speak, and we mix things up, and we confuse concepts and realities, ideas, and we don't retain the information properly. And that's not what we find about these imams. They were religious, God-fearing. They were devoted to their ilm, their chosen art, their chosen craft. We understand this? No one would ever be asked about fiqh in this college and what. Go to Kulliyat al-Hadith, no doubt. What's the best thing to study? Hadith. If that's your chosen art, your love, your passion, you have to what? It has to be some type of what? Bigotry. It has to be some type of bigotry. Everyone understand this? It's benefiting going there. It's a benefiting going there. But you want the best? According to the hadith. Oh, well, I want to study this madhab and I want to do this and so. That's fine. That's good. That's beneficial. But comparative fiqh sunnah is the what? It's the top style of the manual. And that's just how it goes. So that we find this about these imams. They gave precedence to the way of al-hadith, the tariq of al-hadith above all others and above all other ways. Khairan inshallah. So on page 25, the author, he says, Babu ذكر من صلاح مالك بن أنس وعفافه وورعه. He talks about Imam Malik and how he was pious and righteous, all right, and how he was abstinent from many, many things. And he quotes all different types of athar, in which the people, his peers and contemporaries, bore witness to his piety and his righteousness. Then the next chapter he says, Babu dhikri min istihqaq muhibbi Malik ibn Anas as-sunnah. Okay, how Imam Malik was steadfast on the sunnah, all right, and how the people loved him and they used him as a sign for those who were upon the sunnah. Babu dhikri min jalalat Malik bi Madinati Rasul wa qadimihi fil ilm. Him in Medina, how strong he was in Medina. A very interesting chapter is Babu ma dhukira. He says, Afwan, I read that. Babu ma dhukira, huh? Babu ma dhukira min Salahi Malik. Babu ma dhukira min Jalalat Malik. He says, Babu ma dhukira min Aqli Malik ibn Anas wa adabihi. A very interesting chapter. He talks about Imam Malik's intelligence. And many people today, they think that just because you're upon the sunnah is that you don't have to be or you shouldn't be intelligent. And that intelligence is a sign of Ahlul Kalam or Ahlul Bid'ah. And that there's no place for aql because of something that they've heard. Taqdeem al-aql ala-naql. Taqdeem al-aql ala-naql, putting the intellect before the text. That doesn't mean that you don't need actual intellect. And that if you're a scholar, if you're a talib al-ilm and you work hard and you study, you're on the sunnah and you have been blessed with just sheer brain power, that's even better. That's nurun ala nur. Naturally smart, naturally studious, and you've trained yourself and disciplined yourself to read books, to control your mouth, to lower your gaze, not to eat from haram sources, and you study day and night. Now you're going to be what? Even better. So Imam Malik was blessed with a great deal of aql. All right? He mentions the athar here. It says, حدثنا عبد الرحمن قال حدثنا علي بن الحسين قال حدثنا أبو الطاهر يعني أحمد بن عمرو بن الصرح قال حدثنا أيوب بن سويد قال حدثنا من نصدق أو نصدق عن ربيعة أنه كان إذا رأى مالكا قال قد جاء العاقل. He mentions that Rabi'atu al-Ra'i was a contemporary of Malik. He was a great imam in his own respect. He was a contemporary, he was a peer of Malik. And some may even say a rival of Malik. Rabi'atu al-Ra'i, well-known imam. That whenever Imam Malik came, he would say, قَدْ جَاءَ الْعَاقِلِ. He says, the smart one has come. The intelligent man has come. The brain has what? Has arrived. He says, حدثنا عبد الرحمن قال حدثنا علي بن الحسين قال حدثنا عبد الله بن أحمد بن شبوية قال حدثنا عمرو بن العباس الرازي كذا الرزي هكذا قال سمعت عبد الرحمن بن مهدي يقول ما رأيت محدثا أحسن عقلا من مالك بن أنس. He narrates from Abd al-Rahman ibn Mahdi, the teacher of Imam Ahmad. He says, I never saw a muhaddith smarter than Malik. I never saw a hadith master that had more, a sharper brain, a sharper mind than Imam Malik ibn Anas. Khairan, inshallah. And then he mentions other athar. Then he talks about how Malik struggled and suffered for the path of seeking ilm. Okay? من استقامة مالك بن أنس وحسن طريقته من كلام مالك بن أنس عند السلطان بالحق. Very interesting. How Imam Malik was, he spoke the truth in front of the leader. He wasn't a bootlicker. He wasn't afraid and scared and cowardly and to make 1,000 and a million excuses in which the leader is wrong. He's wrong. Malish. It doesn't have to be a person is revolting or rebelling or khawarij, yani, but he's what? He's wrong, let alone in an issue which is publicized and which is clear misguidance or clear kufr or clear shirk or whatever the issue is. How we live today, in which people associate the way of Ahlul Hadith and the Salaf al-Salih with just being deaf, dumb, and blind. And anyone who says anything or feels anything or makes any type of advice or enjoining the good or whatever, they automatically call him what? They say it's khawarij. That's a problem. And one of the cures against that problem is reading what? Books like this. It doesn't get no purer than this. If you want to know the way of the ulama of hadith, it doesn't get what? It's the purest form. And understand this? Reading these types of books. Moving forward, then he talks about how Imam Malik was an imam in ilm. And the last thing we'll mention here is he says, Babu ma dhukira min ittiba'i malikin li athari Rasulillahi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What is mentioned about how Imam Malik followed the sunnah. Imam Malik, he gave precedence to the sunnah before his opinion and before this person and that person, etc. It says here, وَنُزُعِهِ عَنْ فَتْوَاهُ عندما حدث عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو حدث عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم خلافه. He says, and how Imam Malik would retract his fatwa immediately when he found out that the sunnah was in the contrary. The sunnah is against this fatwa, he would immediately what? Take it back and retract it. It says حدثنا عبد الرحمن قال حدثنا أحمد بن عبد الرحمن ابن أخي ابن وهب قال سمعت عمي يقول سمعت مالكا سئل عن تخليل أصابع الرجلين في الوضوء فقال ليس ذلك على الناس. It's narrated, he says here from Ibn Wahab, that I heard Malik one day was asked about digging between your toes and your fingers when making wudu. Digging between your toes and your fingers when you make wudu. Takhleel. Do you just wipe or do you wash over your foot or do you actually dig in between? So Imam Malik was asked about this and he says the people don't have to do it. It's not upon them, they don't have to do it. قال فتركته حتى خف الناس. He says that I left Imam Malik alone until the crowd dispersed. Meaning he didn't publicize it. He didn't try to embarrass Imam Malik or refute him in front of everyone and make a scene. Everyone understand this? He says, حتى خف الناس. The people left, then I did what? Then I got on them now. He says here, فقلت له عندنا في ذلك سنة. It says, oh Imam Malik, we have a proof for this. We have a dalil for this. We have a sunnah regarding takhleel. فقال وما هي? And what is it? What's that sunnah that you know about that I don't know about? قلت حدثنا الليث بن سعد وابن لهيعة وعمرو بن الحارث عن يزيد بن عمرو المعافري عن أبي عبد الرحمن الحبلي عن المستورد بن شداد القرشي قال رأيت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يدلك بخنصره ما بين أصابع رجليه. So then he went on to mention his isnad. He narrated his sanad, the dalil al-hadith that goes back to al-Mustawrad ibn Shaddad radiyallahu anhu. He says, I saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam using his pinky finger between his toes. I saw the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam making wudu and placing his pinky finger, his little finger, between his toes when he performed wudu. فقال إن هذا الحديث حسن وما سمعت به قط إلا الساعة. He says this is a good hadith, a beautiful hadith, and I've never heard it until now. It's the first time that I've heard this narration until now. ثم سمعت بعد ذلك يسأل فيأمر بتخليل الأصابع. He says afterwards, whenever Imam Malik was asked about this, he would tell the people, dig between your toes, dig between your fingers, make the takhleel. Immediately after he heard this. So this is a beautiful narration, and we learn so many things therefrom. From that which we learn about this from this narration is that a great scholar could possibly miss out on something, and he may not know something, and that is no disrespect to that scholar. That is no tanghis, that's no taking away from his status. That's no disrespect to his status. But he is a human being. He's a son of Adam. And not only can the son of Adam forget, but oftentimes the son of Adam is unaware. How could this not be? And when Allah Azza wa Jal clearly says, وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًا فَهَدَى. And Allah, He found you ضَالًا. You were unaware. And He guided you. How can this be? Allah mentions this in the Quran in many ayat. Ma kunta, Allah says that you didn't know what the book was, what Iman was. You didn't know these things, all right? So therefore, the Prophet ﷺ at a time was unaware of certain things. Allah, He mentions this. He taught you, وَعَلَّمَكَ مَا لَمْ تَكُنْ تَعْلَمْ وَكَانَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ عَظِيمًا. He says Allah taught you that what you didn't know. And Allah's bounty on you was tremendous. Allah's fadl, what He gave you was tremendous from beforehand. So if the Prophet ﷺ, Allah says there's things you didn't know, you weren't aware about. The book was revealed to you. It was given to you. What about what? Malik, let alone what? Sheikh Fulan or Sheikh Alan of today. And what you say, well, maybe Sheikh Fulan's unaware. Or maybe someone else knows, but no, you can't say that. It's disrespect. You think you know better than him? You disrespected the ulama. You have no respect for the ulama. Imam Malik says, I never heard this hadith about something so rudimentary. What? Up until this day. So this is the first fact. The fact number two is that the scholar, the learning person, is to retract his statement that goes against the truth with the condition that is the truth to him. Everyone understand this? That he considers it to be wrong or right. As far as just because a person says something or writes something, it doesn't mean that that person believes in it. You can write 1,000 pages in the PDF, but it doesn't mean that I consider it to be the sawab. It doesn't mean that I consider your criticism to be lazim. Everyone understand this? Doesn't mean that. And oftentimes people, they accuse people of arrogance, but they themselves are full of arrogance. So let's make an example right now, a scenario. You're not supposed to wear that hat, that red hat, that furry hat. That's a hat of a Sufi. Have a hat of a Tijani, a hat of this and a hat of that. And I write this and I write that. And then you say, well, I really, Sheikh took off the hat, Allah Akbar. Tayyib. He says, okay, well, that's great, Jazakallah khairan, lakin, however, I don't necessarily agree with that. Or this is a different type of hat, or so on and so forth. So therefore, him not taking off the hat and not accepting it, I say, look, undur, look at his arrogance. But in actuality, if you really just finely tune it, if you just twist the knob on the microscope, you can actually see that the arrogance is really coming from who? Me. Anything that I say about you, I'm automatically right and you're automatically what? Wrong. And if you do not take my advice or my criticism or my slander, you're arrogant. But in actuality, I'm what? You have to listen to me. That in itself is a what? It's an arrogance. Pay attention now and don't be fooled. Everyone understand this? So you're arrogant for not listening to me. Maybe you are. But I'm arrogant for thinking that everything I say is lazim upon my opponent. Let alone the fact that if you never studied anywhere. And the person that you're criticizing did what? There's a problem as well. And yani, this is endless. When you just systematically break down the methodology of these people's minds. It doesn't stop. I've never studied nowhere. You have. I criticize you. You have to take what I say immediately. And if you don't, you're arrogant. I could be arrogant. He could be arrogant. But it also proves what? You have the kibr as well. And you feel that you're muhaiminan ala nas. You're dominant over the people, and Allah has chosen you from among all these people to be the vanguard of the correct aqeedah of Islam and the sunnah of Islam and the ibadah of Islam. And everyone else besides you that's not with you or associated with you is ignorant and an innovator and a jahil. That in itself is a type of what? That's an arrogance. There's no question about that. That's pride. Okay? So Imam Malik rahimahullah, he says, I never heard of it before. And the moment that he accepted it, he implemented it. And that's the next faida. Is that this scholar is to retract that which is wrong clearly and go to that which is correct. Everyone understand this? And it shows you how he put that sunnah into effect. How better would the Muslim world be today if those who call themselves Malikis would read something like this? Is that the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ was before and above and beyond what? Imam Malik, Abu Hanifa, and Imam Ahmed, and Shafi'i, and anyone else, with all due respect. With all due respect, and there's a lot of confusion and mixing and jumbling of these different fiqh issues and usul and this madhab and that madhab. Zealots on what? Both sides. On both sides. And one of the things that we believe is a cure for this is returning back to these books. Returning back to these books and reading these athar if you really want to know the way of Ahlul Hadith. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Faddal. Repeat the question, please.
Initials NH, Toronto, Canada. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. I have one Ramadan fast to
Faddal.
make up, and I was hoping to finish it today. I wasn't able to wake up in time. I'm wondering if I could fast tomorrow. I don't usually fast on Friday.
Right. Question is from Toronto with regards to Miss Ramadan fast. I woke up late today, Thursday. I want to fast and make it up tomorrow, which is a Friday. I normally don't fast on Fridays. It's okay. If Ramadan is not around the corner, then wait until Saturday. If you don't want to do it on Saturday because of the hadith, and the ulama different on that, then do it on Sunday. It's no rush. Of course, you want to make up the missed fast. Of course, taban. But if there's a problem or an issue of Friday, and you're not going to do a day before or day after, if it's an issue or problem with Saturday, then just delay it until Sunday or Monday, as long as you have more than enough time. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam.
Initials FA, East Flanders, Belgium. You mentioned that with regards to the Quran, one should have a part one reads for dhikr, a part one reviews, and a part one memorizes, if not already done. Should a student also specify a time where he forces himself to read from memory?
Tayyib. Question is from East Flanders, Belgium, correct? With regards to how a person breaks up his or her day or morning and the recitation of the Quran. Reading it, memorizing it, and just reviewing it. Okay? Is it a time, or should there be a time in which you test yourself on what you've memorized? That's included in that. And if you need to make a fourth category, then you make a fourth category. But the fourth category should be with someone, a teacher or a colleague. And if you don't have a teacher or a colleague, then do it with yourself. So let's say, for example, right now it's Fajr. We make Fajr at 6:20, 6:30. Fajr is over at 6:45. I start my Quran at 7 a.m. I have my breakfast, my bowl of Wheaties or oatmeal or raisin bran or whatever, and I'm ready to start at 7 a.m. So I do half an hour, this is an example, for reading an entire juz. An entire juz from the beginning. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alif Lam Mim, etc. Right? 22 pages, 20 pages, roughly. 7:30. At 8 a.m., I do 7:30 for hifd. And it takes me half an hour to memorize half of a page. Or one ayah, depending on how slow or how fast. You may memorize 2-3 pages. Somebody's slow, somebody's fast, right? It's now what? 8 o'clock, correct? Then I start doing my muraja'ah, my review, in which I'm reading from Bismillahirrahmanirrahim for half an hour. It's now what? What time is it? 8:30. That what you just did, that's testing your memory. You understand what I'm saying to you? You read it. You've what do we mention? Reading. Then there's hifd. Then there's what? There's muraja'ah. Everyone understand this? So you read it just. You've memorized whatever you could, a page, half a page, an ayah, whatever it is. Correct? Took you 30 minutes. Then the last 30 minutes you did what? You did review. Everyone understand this? I don't see the necessity of a fourth category. You guys? If you want to test out what you were doing for that half an hour, I get it, no problem. Do it at another time. Let it be at night, between Maghrib and Isha, or after Isha. And when you sit in front of your teacher, or with your friend, or even if it's by yourself, and you go over those first ayat of Amma Yatasa'aloon. Methalan. But it doesn't have to be a part of the standard regimen in the morning. Give it time to soak in your brain. Come back to it. Wallahu a'lam.
At what stage should sisters expose, shame, and dawah people that message them inappropriately on social media to warn other sisters from them? How should this be done?
Say the question again.
Initials SM UK. At what stage should sisters expose, shift, and dawah people that message them inappropriately on social media to warn other sisters from them? How should this be done?
Question says, at what stage should sisters expose sheikhs, du'ats that message them inappropriately on social media to warn other sisters they're from? I'll say this. Takes two hands to clap. Two hands are needed to clap. Sometimes there are sheikhs or fake students of knowledge or whatever, may Allah help us and protect us all, that will message inappropriately through speech, through pictures, or whatever the case may be. And oftentimes there's sisters who allow it and invite it and sometimes condone it. And oftentimes there's sisters who are very naive, very immature, and oftentimes they play the victim, the damsel in distress, the harmless deer in the forest versus this wolf with the beard and the fangs. Everyone understand this? Are there predators out there? Indeed. Are there women who allow it and women who refuse to look and to use common sense? That exists as well. That's the point I'm trying to get to. So it's always easy to just blame one side. This sheikh is messaging this person inappropriately. This sheikh abused this person. He womanized her. He tried to marry her. He divorced her. Maybe he did. But what did the sister put forth? What conditions or standards did she put forth for herself? How did she go about it? What investigation did she do about him? What does she know about him? A good brother came to marry her. She refused him. And she wants this other person, the concept of a superstar, a rock star. That's a culture. That is reality. So my humble opinion, and Allah knows best, is that there are brothers who do abuse their power and their authority. Yes. And there are sisters who are victims. No doubt about that. And there are also people, sisters, who, as if they want to be used and abused, as if they want to be put through the system, as if they want to get the groupie type of feel. Everyone else goes, the sheikh, he's a what? He's a superstar. He's a student of knowledge. In the UK, he went overseas for 2 years. He came back. He finished the language program. He's a what? Student of knowledge. He's a rock star now. He's giving a talk. He's giving a faida. All right? So I think that there has to be responsibility on what? Both sides. There has to be responsibility on both sides. What's important is if the sin is done publicly, if it's inappropriate, and it's something which is public and an open, it's a different story. If it's something private and hidden, give that person advice. Fear Allah, jazakallah khairan, and so on and so forth. If you want to get married, let's try to do it this way. Whatever the case may be. All right? And you have to have a purpose on social media. You have to have an agenda on social media. You can't just be around on social media floating around. I mean, that's because you'll be discovered by other people who are just what? Floating around. And oftentimes some of those people who are floating may be predators, even if they have knowledge or claim to have knowledge. So be careful, be mindful what pictures you have on your page. Be mindful what circle that you're in. And if you want a good husband that has knowledge and is a student of knowledge, I don't think it's a mystery. That's my humble opinion. I think there are plenty of good brothers out there that have ilm, that have studied, that are looking for wives. It's not a mystery. Brothers with good reputations, good character, it's not a what? It's not a mystery. You want a rock star, a superstar, that's a different story. You can't get mad at the rock star for discarding you. You wanted to be a part of the show. What do you think was going to happen to you? What happened to the last 5 or 10 sisters that he was with? What makes you different? So you get as much respect as you give. Everyone understand this? You respect yourself. You give respect. You uphold yourself in a certain way. That's what happened to you. And even if someone does come and violate you or cross the boundaries, it's not going to last but for what? For so long. So it has to be detailed with regards to this issue. If someone messages you inappropriately and they claim to have knowledge and to be a person of knowledge, you give them advice, you're enjoying the good, you forbid the evil. If it's a pattern, if it's a program, because there's a difference between once, twice, and 3 times. Once could be an accident or an incident. Twice is a pattern. 3 times is a program. Don't ever forget these words. 1 time may have made a mistake. Person may have fallen into error. Person may have been overcome by his lust, whatever the case may be. And that's still unbefitting. It's still unbefitting, right? No excuses. Twice, it's a pattern now. The same thing happened to another sister on Facebook. The same thing happened to another sister in this city in the UK. 3 times he did the same thing in each city. He married a sister, divorced the next day. He married a sister, and then you come along thinking that you're getting something different. Everyone understand this? So there is, it depends. It depends. Wallahu alam.
Is it permissible to say Allah during Quran recitation?
Questions from where?
Northern UK.
Is it permissible to say Allah in when you're reciting the Quran? The scholars of Islam, they mention is that if you do certain things when you're reciting the Quran and it comes as just a habit or just comes unexpected or naturally, then there's not necessarily nothing wrong with it. As far as for you to intend it and to go after it and to do it intentionally, then it becomes a problem. So there's some fatwa that you can read from the ulama. If a person reads the Quran and his head is moving, head moves a little bit with some type of rhythm. If he's moving, if he's reading or he hears Allah, it affects his heart. And it happens without an intention, without a qasd. As a person intentionally rocking his head. Everyone understand this? Or intentionally saying Allah, Allah, Allah. And what you do it each and every single time is clearly going to become at least problematic. As far as if you were listening to the Quran and saying, oh, subhanAllah, Allah, it's beautiful, it touched my heart. That's a different story. Versus you sitting down and you have it premeditated in your head that I'm going to say what? Allah, at this ayah. Allah Mustan. That's what I would say about that. And Allah knows best.
Initial H, Burnsville. I don't know first word. Next question.
Yeah, next question.
Initials EN, Melbourne, Australia. Assalamu alaikum mufti. What do we mean when we say the Quran is not created?
Questions from Melbourne, Australia. What do we mean when we say that the Quran is not created? Okay, we have to have a bit of a background or little background on this statement. The Quran is not created. غَيْرُ مَخْلُوق. This was added to the definition of the Quran and what the Quran is. It came at a certain period of time And there was a reason why they said that. It was a time which the Quran, al-Quranu kalam Allah. That's it, the speech of Allah. Then certain people start coming along who claim to have knowledge and righteousness and piety, and they came up with the belief and the idea or the ideal that the Quran was makhluk min makhluqatillah waliyadu billah. It was one of Allah's created beings. And Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't have speech and so on and so on and so forth. Right? So the ulama of the Sunnah al-Hadith, they had to combat that. They had to go against that. And they said, Al-Qur'anu kalamullah ghayru makhluk. As a disclaimer, it's the speech of Allah which is not created. And if it was no need, and if that didn't exist, and if they weren't saying that, then they wouldn't have to what? Say that. So if you were asked, what is the Quran? You say, the Quran is the speech of Allah. This person is upon the pure fitrah. They never had no type of other deviant aqeedah they were exposed to. You would tell them what? The Quran is the kalam of Allah. Now, in light of someone that was taught differently, they've heard differently, they've been exposed to other things, then you clearly state that disclaimer, and it is what? وَهُوَ غَيْرُ مَخْلُوقٍ. Everyone understand this? And there are many different definitions that people mention that aren't necessarily necessary unless they're used as disclaimers in light of other false things. Everyone understand this? Moving forward. What's meant by this? The Quran is the kalam of Allah. And the kalam of Allah is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a quality of Allah. None of Allah's attributes or qualities are created. Just as Allah himself is not what? Created. He's the creator of all things. No one made and created Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the golden principle is that إِنَّ الْكَلَامَ فِي الصِّفَاتِ فَرْعٌ عَنَ الْكَلَامِ فِي الذَّاتِ كَمَا يَقُولُونَ. They say when you speak about Allah's attributes, it takes the same rulings as speaking about Allah himself. So we have the attributes of Allah, and then we have the speech about Allah Azza wa Jalla, talking about Him himself, the Mighty and the Most High. Same rules. Is the Quran this, that? We have to look at what we believe about what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is Allah this and is Allah that? The kalam about the sifat is the same as the kalam about Allah himself. Everyone understand the principle? So the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jalla says, Hatta yasma'a kalam Allah. And if one of the mushriks seeks your protection, he seeks your safety, fa'ajirhu. Allah says, then grant him that, give him that, until he does what? Here's the speech of Allah. What was the speech of Allah on the time of the Prophet? Except for what? What was the Prophet, what was he saying? What was he reciting? What was being sent down to him? What was being written down except for the what? The Quran. So there's no doubt the Quran is the kalam of Allah. And the kalam of Allah is an attribute of Allah, the Mighty and the Most High. And none of Allah's attributes are what? Created. Things that are attributed to Allah are of two types. The ulama say. Al-a'yan al-mudafa ila Allah ala qismain. That which is attributed to Allah and it itself exists. And that which is attributed to Allah and it is attributed to Allah as a quality and as a characteristic. So Baytullah, Naqatullahi wa suqiyaha, the she camel of Allah, is attributed what? To Allah. It's no doubt. Mudafa. However, the she camel was what? It was a being. It was in existence. It drank water. They slaughtered it, hamstrung it, etc. Everyone understand? So of course the she camel was what? It was created. And then we says kalam Allah, the speech of Allah, is attributed to Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's his attribute. It's not created. So that's what's meant that the Quran is the speech of Allah and it is not created. And the reason why it's not created is because it's one of his attributes, and his attributes are not created, just like Allah is not created. Everyone understand this? To simplify things. Wallahu alam.
A.J. Bowie, Maryland. What should a Muslim believe about Ya'juj or Ma'juj?
Question is from Bowie, Maryland. What should a Muslim believe about Ya'juj and Ma'juj? Next question.
Initials MD, Atlanta, Georgia. How should we deal with apostates who are once close?
Apostates who were once close. Give them advice if you can. Listen to them. Maybe somehow you can talk to them. Maybe they only left Islam for a personal reason. Maybe they needed someone to be there for them. They need someone to talk to, a shoulder to cry on. Allahu alam what they're going through. Try to speak to them. Try to give them advice. Try to shake them up and instill in them the fear of Allah. And if they refuse and their hearts have been sealed and they don't want to hear or listen to anything, distance yourselves from them. Distance yourselves from them and do not allow them to spread their evil speech and corruption to others. So unfortunately, if a person had a son that left Islam, and the son was young, and he lived in a house among the other children, and you talked to your son, you did everything you possibly could. You cried at night until your liver and your kidney went dry. Your eyes were red. You were heartbroken that your son left Islam, and it was clear to you that he's gone, he's lost. There's no hope unless Allah wills that. It is now your job and your duty to protect what? Your other 4 sons. There's no doubt about that. Because if he leaves a thing, he may start what? Spreading it to others. And that's the general rule. Whenever a person is involved in something and they leave that thing willingly, most cases they hate that thing. And they spend a great deal of time and energy warning against it. This is applicable to gangs. This is applicable to religions. It's applicable to when I used to be Salafi and I'm no longer Salafi. Now you talk about the Salafis. It's why they show so much hatred and enmity to someone who was once among them, because they know that he was inside, he knows everything, he's on the other side. And he left the other side, what? Willingly. So in most cases, he's going to warn people against what? That's why so much hatred shown to that person. So this person who leaves Islam, not all the time, but in most cases, they're going to what? They're going to encourage others to do it and spread others to do it. So it's very dangerous. So try your best, help them out, give them advice. And oftentimes people that leave Islam, and they don't really want to leave Islam. They're just going through something. They're stressed out. They're going through a major problem. They say, "Yeah, what's wrong with you, man? Get yourself together." "Yeah, you're right. Astaghfirullah." Alhamdulillah. And other times people are actually misled and they leave Islam. I've given you advice. I try to be your friend. There's nothing else that we have to talk about. Lakum dinukum waliya din. You have your way, I have mine. Stay out of your way. Stay out of my way. What? I stay out of yours. And that's it. That's all you can do. And beware of them spreading those doubts. If it's someone that's in your family or that wasn't your inner circle. Wallahu alam.
Initials IH, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah bless you and your family. Until what time can you pray Fajr Sunnah?
Until what time can you pray Fajr Sunnah? It's permissible to make the Sunnahs of Fajr after Salat al-Fajr. That is permissible. The Hadith prove that. The Prophet allowed the companions to do that. He himself didn't do it, but he allowed them to do it. He would make his Sunnahs before the Fajr. But it is permissible to do it after Fajr. You're going to make those raka'at, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Try your best to make them as soon as possible. And if you have no reason for delay, don't delay them. Immediately make them after the Fajr. You made the basic adhkar, make it. As far as if you get caught up or you get held up and you fear that the sun is rising, then wait. Wait. And the permissibility of making them after Fajr is when it's still dark. And it's still dark and you still have a good 20, 30 minutes until sunrise. Wallahu alam.
Initials OR Springfield, Virginia. Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are well. How can one lower the gaze?
Tight. Abu Amin, what was your question?
I just wanted to understand what when a person is goes to a black magician and asks that the black magician does whatever they do to harm a person with black magic. What's different? Because we all have colleagues, right, that are going to try to call us the evil. So when a person goes to a black magician, what is the black magician actually doing? Are they sending like special forces of the jinn to you, or like what's actually going on that they can now cause something specific to happen? You know what I mean?
Clear.
We all have our-
One thing for sure, Akhi Abu Amin, you're alright with me. Alhamdulillah. No matter what they say about you, you've always remained true to your madhab of questions. You always ask, is it either about the aliens or jinn? One of the two, over all of these years that I've known him. Well, alhamdulillah, he's remained true. Tayyib, the sci-fi questions, huh? Khairan, inshallah. What does a black magician do that's different than your qareen, that the qareen can't do, etc.? Does he send special forces, black ops from among the jinn, etc.? Tayyib. Allah knows best how this is going to be in the timestamps. Black ops, jinn. At the end of the day, I mean, you just got to look at it like, just look at it like in the human world, okay? The world of the humans. There's someone who's bothering you, a bully, someone that's trying to do something to you, some type of harm, right? And then there's someone who's bigger, tougher, stronger, more ruthless, and more aggressive. It's not the same, right? It's not the same. So you got somebody who's like look at it on a street level. You got, like I said, a young punk. Get out of here. He wanted to take an old lady's pocketbook, something like that. That's not the same as organized crime. A trained professional hitman. Everyone understand this? Someone that's going to cause havoc and wreak havoc. That has no limits, no limitations in harming others for what they want out of material gain. It's not the same as a little what? A little bum. Huh? What did he do? He threw the money at him on a train, right? Tafaddal. You see what I'm saying? And that's it. That's all they wanted. That's not the same as someone who's what? So there are different levels of jinn. There are different types of jinn who serve different purposes. All right? And just because he is jinn or qareen doesn't mean that they're all the same. Even the evil ones aren't always the what? The same. The Quran clearly establishes this and affirms this. So sihr is a world and is a relationship of the sahir, is a relationship of the qareen. They have a relationship. They help each other out. They do things for each other. All right? And when a person wishes to perform that type of sihr on someone, it's much more than just any of the normal type of jinn or qareen. As you would say, special forces, huh? Green beret. It's different levels of evil. Waliyadu billah, huh? Yes, there's no question about that. And all jinn aren't evil. You understand what I'm saying to you? Just like the kuffar, they're different levels. Ahlul Kitab, Mushrikun, are different types, different classes. They're not, laysu sawa'a. They're not just one level. Wallahu alam. Father, was that question, Abdul Rakib?
Initial OR Springfield, Virginia. Assalamu alaikum, Mufti. I hope you are well. How can one lower the gaze?
Springfield, Virginia. I hope you're well. How can one lower the gaze? وَمَنْ يَتَصَبَّرْ يُصَبِّرْهُ اللَّهُ. The Prophet ﷺ says, whoever attempts patience, Allah will make him patient. Period. It may be hard in the beginning. It may be difficult in the beginning. But you have to put forth some effort. You have to struggle. You have to strive. And then eventually, bi'idhnillah, the divine help will come. The support will come. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. That was after the Prophet ﷺ left Mecca. As after the Prophet ﷺ left his family members. As after that Badr and Uhud. This companion died. This companion was tortured. Then Allah says, إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ. The victory, the supreme support from Allah came after the struggle. So you have to try. You have to attempt. You have to try to lower the gaze. It's going to be difficult in the beginning if you're used to looking at everything and staring at everything and gazing and gawking at everything. But bi'idhnillah, through practice, through an attempt, it will become easier. And most importantly, Allah will open up your heart at that time. Whoever wishes to fear Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will make it easy for them. There's no doubt about that. So that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is try to stay out of the places that cause you not to lower your gaze. Whether that's the mall, whether that's this restaurant, on this day, on this night, on this weekend, try to stay out of those places. And what do you think is going to be in this place? It's going to be all types of women, all types of men. It's going to be young people, it's going to be these people. Stay away from those things. Be mindful of what you watch. Be mindful of what you listen to. And also have good company. Because if you're around pious, righteous brothers, you're going to feel shy staring at this woman walking down the street wearing this type of pants. You're going to feel shy. Even if you want to look at her, she looks good. Oh man. But you what? That's embarrassing. These are righteous brothers and I'm breaking my neck. So if you keep doing that, that shyness is going to make you have some type of consciousness. And we know that you build off of momentum. You build off of momentum. I didn't do it because I really thought it was a bad thing to do. I wanted to look at her. But I was shy in front of you. And then the next day I'm with you and then I'm what? Shy again. And the third day and the fourth day and eventually I start thinking about it, and the momentum, what? It picks up. And I say, that wasn't that difficult. It wasn't that hard not to stare, not to look. Whack at that. So yeah, it has to take practice. It has to take practice. Wallahu alam.
Initials AS, Audit, Langley, UK. Assalamu alaikum. Could you please explain whether a practicing Muslim could or should delve into researching political matters, knowing what's happening in different countries, and possibly coming to attack? Sorry for the long question.
The question is from UK with regards to delving into political matters. How much, how far should or can you go, etc. Every single Muslim, every person, in my humble opinion, should have some basic knowledge and understanding of government. Basic. That there are rules. These rules are determined in a certain manner, a certain way. Who to go to when you have a problem, when there is an issue. The power of the voice, etc. A general understanding and a general awareness. And then those who are learned in the deen. those who are professionals, those who are lawyers, those who are representatives of the masjids, they have to have more knowledge, of course. So if you have a major in political science or you're a leader of a community, you have to know more. Who do you go to get this fix? Why is this person here? What do you call? Who do you call? You have to have more knowledge depending on your status. So if that's your field of expertise, and you can translate that to Islam, to the Sunnah, to Sharia, to help out the Muslims, you should master it. Master it. There has to be someone from among us who knows these things and knows them what? Well, like a lawyer. Everyone can't know the basic, simple concept of law. There has to be someone who's memorized the books. And that's because the Muslims, they need legal, or they need the representation. And the same applies to politics. They need political representation for the Eid, for halal meats to be served in the public schools, for women to wear niqab, for women to wear hijab and a beard. Politics, the voices, everything. All right, and yani we've spoken about this many times, and unfortunately we've taken a lot of heat, or maybe fortunately, for saying what we feel is the truth. Is that we are very hypocritical. We benefit from politics. We get the fruits of the labor of people, but we say, oh, you can't be involved. You can't study it. You can't do anything. You can't say anything. But we all benefit from those political sacrifices. All of us do. We all take off when it's the Eid holiday. We all know that the police officer can't ask us to do this. And in the airport, they can't do that. And you have the right to ask for this and to request this on a flight. How do you think that came? You think that came from people sitting at home twiddling their thumbs? No, it didn't. It came from people speaking up. It came from people going to the leaders, going to the governments, complaining, and it also came from people voting. And it came from people being involved. So everyone doesn't have to. Many people should not. Somebody has to have some expertise in it, but not every single Muslim. And that's the problem, in which we sit down and we start talking about it and discussing it, and we don't have the proper knowledge, and we waste too much time on it. But under any circumstance, does that mean that a Muslim cannot sit down and discuss what's going on in the media or the news or the president? And many people, they say this, oh, you can't talk about this, oh, put that newspaper up. In other words, they want the people to just be deaf, dumb, and blind. So don't involve yourselves with politics of your country, but involve yourselves with what? This war between this sheikh and that sheikh. Both of the two are bad for the layman. Everyone understand this? Both of them are bad. The layman is not supposed to spend his or her day talking about this president and this king and this emperor. Nor is the layman supposed to be talking about this sheikh and that sheikh and how they're fighting and calling each other innovators. Both of them are bad. So that's my advice, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Any more questions? Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala